great to work with. There's a great team. It's like, you're leaving your house and your family and you're just going to another family.
Yeah.
So.
Welcome back to another episode of Andy's Talk. Today I'm joined by just a great guy. He's my Southern charm. If he talks, you just feel like you're at home. He's a hard guy to get on the podcast, so it took about 13 inches of snow on the ground to get him in here. Because you're a hard worker, man.
Yeah.
Welcome to the podcast. How you doing?
Thanks for having me. I'm good.
Yeah. So let's start off. They're going to hear your twang. Where are you from, man? Where'd you grow up?
So I grew up in northern Alabama, Randolph County, Alabama, and it's right there at the Georgia line. So I always had 1 foot in Bama, 1 foot in Georgia.
Okay. Well, which one's your favorite?
Oh, it's hard, man, because I lived probably 50-50 all my life. So I was the only one in my family born and raised in Alabama. Most of my dad's side of the family is all from Dixon, Tennessee. My mom's side's from Georgia, and we got some in Florida. So
you're full Southern.
I'm full Southern. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about your history and how that led to Andy's Roofing. What industries did you work in? How long did you live in Bama? All that stuff.
So growing up, my dad, I've got 2 older brothers, kind of backtrack. They're both in their 50s. So my dad had my oldest brothers, and at that time he was starting his own construction company.
Okay.
He's been a jack of all trades all of his life, everything from land surveying, concrete, you name it. Ground up, he's done it. So he started in his 20s. There was some housing projects being built in Atlanta, Georgia, and him and one of his friends who became a foreman later in the years, they were watching these framers, build these houses, and then they watched them lay the felt paper back in the day on all the houses. So he went up and approached the superintendent and was like, hey, I'll jump ahead of y'all for, so many cents a square foot and start laying it. So he was making a little bit of change, and he was also kind of learning
the trade.
And then from there, he moved, fast forward, he moved to Alabama, and he already had an established roofing company. So him and my brother David started it. So it was Don and David, Double D Construction. We done a lot of metal roofing. He built a lot of houses around Lake Wedowee, which is like the biggest man-made lake in Alabama. And then growing up, since I was 10 years old, I was cutting the wood for him, 2x4s, whatever, just kind of watching him learning everything. So from there, after high school, I took a break with my dad. I started working in land surveying, learned that whole side of the business. Then after that, I actually done land grading. So I was running heavy equipment, and that kind of tied into land surveying. But all my life, I've just kind of been developing the jack of all trades mentality like my dad. So
yeah, and sorry for your loss, man. I know in the last year that happened. When I first started, I think you like my dad's like my best friend. So
yeah,
he taught you a lot.
Yeah, him and my mom, I give a lot of credit to because I'm 2-sided coin, one side of my dad and the other of my mom. So we always worked together, like in the company. So me and my dad would be framing, building a deck, doing a roof, and then we'd have an interior side. My mom was always the painter. So, she taught me how to cut in the corners with no tape, all that. So they both molded me kind of like who I am today. And I was with my dad like every day, every waking minute. We butted heads a lot because we're so much alike. But I met my now wife, Mary. She was in Auburn University for vet school program. She was from Henry County originally, or Oldham County area. And
up here?
From Kentucky, yeah.
Okay.
So we met in Auburn because I was like an hour from Auburn. All my friends growing up, we always in Auburn. So
you were just there like studying, right? That's how you met. Like you weren't.
No, I didn't go to school. It originally started.
I was trying to save you because there's no way you went partying. Up there.
Yeah. So I had the chance to go to college, and I was looking at like medical school. But after high school and taking placement tests and kind of like interviewing, job shadowing some of these doctors, I just saw kind of how it was just not the environment I wanted to be.
Yeah.
I wanted to be outside, really hands-on in a different way. But because if it wasn't like anything medical, then I was just gonna follow the jack of all trades mentality. Yeah. So I kind of led with that. But I met Mary when she was in veterinarian school. We started dating, and then all my life, my dad I don't think he's met anyone I've ever dated. And then when he met Mary, he was like, son, this is probably the best thing you've ever done.
Yeah.
And he's like, you need to marry this girl. So from there, when she graduated in May of 2020, I believe it was, I had a decision to make, leave Bama, Southern roots, and go 8 hours away to Kentucky if I wanted to marry this girl. So that's what I've done.
Yeah.
And then it was really bittersweet because I was starting this whole new life, with Mary. And then I worked at a company with Kevin Prince, who's our GM. I've known him for a long time. He was one of my groomsmen at my wedding. He's like a brother. And it was kind of like starting this whole new life, like really getting, my feet on the ground up here in Kentucky, getting settled in. And then my dad was kind of like battling some health issues. And it was July 4th, around like 12:43, I got a call from my mom and, saying that he had passed. So it was kind of something that we were expecting. But at that time, we were planning a wedding. It would have been like the first big wedding, that my dad and mom would have went to. So I was kind of like pushing, like, I got to make all this stuff happen so they can experience this. So,
did you guys get to do anything at the wedding to honor your dad at all? Or
we did. So growing up, my dad's always been around horses, training them, breaking them, pull carriages and wagons and stuff. So that was something that me and my dad done a lot together. And he always had this cowboy hat he always wore, a white cowboy hat. And he had a belt, a special made belt with, double D on it. Everyone called him Double D. And his belt buckle, just some of that memorabilia we had in a seat for him reserved next to my mom. So
That's
and
awesome.
we took a bunch of pictures with it. So
That's awesome. So you and Mary move up here. She kind of gets implemented back into where she came from. You work at another roofing company. You do a couple things. Once Kevin leaves and comes over to Andy's, what is that process like? Are you like asking questions like, hey, what's that company like? Is that a good company? Like,
yeah, so that's so when we're both at this other roofing company, which I won't name.
yeah.
He was the project manager there, and I was handling all the warranty, kind of like quality control stuff. And at the same time, I was the plan there was I was being molded to then take over production manager there, and he would be the GM there essentially. Well, things kind of went south. The ship sank really fast, and Kevin got out.
The writing was on the walls for everybody.
Yeah, the writing was on the walls for everyone. But in my position, I was like, well, I'm still trying to make myself, stable up in Kentucky. So I just wrote it out for a long haul. I was basically on the Titanic watching it sink, and I was like, well, I'm gonna, clean the floors.
You're like one of the violin players that just stays
basically,
there.
that's
Like, we're gonna stay.
it. So there was no production manager. Kevin was gone. Everyone's kind of scrambling. So I just jumped right into it. Started taking over the production. Doing a lot of jobs, but ultimately it wasn't doing anything because the company was lost at that point. So, and then he came to Andy's. So it was I was supposed to start about 10 days before my dad passed. And then when my dad passed, I called Kevin, kind of let him know what was going on. And he had already talked to Ethan about me, and he was like, hey, man, I talked to Ethan. He was like, take your time. They're really understanding. So that was the first thing. I was like, man, this is already a good feeling.
Yeah.
And then Kevin was like, hey, man, you should come to Andy's. So I came to Andy's, sat down with Kevin and Ethan, had a talk, and the rest is history, man. And I've worked with a lot of different people, a lot of different roofing companies. I've been in this world for a long time. And Andy's is different. I remember being at the previous company, and I was like, man, I wish we would implement this or do this and that. When I came to Andy's, it was already here.
Yeah.
So, everyone is great to work with. There's a great team. It's like, you're leaving your house and your family and you're just going to another family.
Yeah.
So
Tell me a little bit about, like, if you had a friend or a family, like, you kind of just answered the question, but, like, would you recommend them work at Andy's Roofing? And then, like, what are, like, actual one or two things that are different? Like, you say it's different, but, like, what are some noticeable things that you have seen in this industry that are different at Andy's Roofing?
I think the biggest thing is integrity.
Yeah.
Some of our core values, having a servant's heart. It's not just about going out and putting a roof on or, installing gutters or doing any kind of like work to someone's house. At the end of the day, we're there to leave it better. And, you're going to leave a project and a homeowner knowing that you took care of them. And reaching out to the community is like one of the biggest things. It's easier for companies to go out here and just grind and, do the usual every day. But it's another when a company's going out and we're here to serve the community as well.
And that's one thing like we need to post more about, like Ethan and his vision. Dude, we gave away 8 free roofs last year, which is crazy.
Awesome.
Like,
that's awesome.
Most roofing companies are like try to get as much money and much roofs as you can get until the next storm or like the end of the year comes. But like we were just out there giving away to people who need them, and that's super cool.
Yeah, it's like the roof giveaway, the veteran roof troops. Yep. I was grateful to be a part of that when we done it for Mr. Tevis.
Yeah,
hearing his story, when he's in Desert Storm, talking to a veteran like that, and seeing the joy on his face, when we surprised him, we're like, hey, we're giving you a brand new roof. That was a great experience. So there's experiences like that within this company that not only grows the company, but it grows you within the company.
Yeah. All right. Last question for you. One superpower. I would feel like you, of all people, have thought about this quite a bit.
I do, yes.
What is it? What's that going to be for you?
Oh, man. I think a lot of times I was like, I want super strength or to fly, but in this stage of my life, I think to control time. So I'll go Dr. Strange on
That's real deep. That's real deep.
Yeah.
Well, Skyler, thanks for coming out here. Again, Skyler's one of our site supervisors, our OGs here. He's been here a while, 2 years now?
Yeah, I started actually in August, mid-August of 23.
Okay. So I started in September of 23.
Yeah.
So we haven't been here. We haven't been here that much apart. So, Skyler, thank you for coming out here.
My pleasure.
If you guys want to work at Andy's Roofing, head over to our careers page on the website. We're hiring for, I think, 3 or 4 different positions right now. We're not just up here saying this stuff. This company is a really good place to work. I think you guys would love it. So if you're interested, apply today, and we'll see you next time.